In the early 2010s, you may recall that Industry 4.0 was introduced, and that caused a lot of hype in the market. And in connection with this, many industries were also buzzing with talk about how simulation would revolutionize product development. However, to my surprise, what was often overlooked in these discussions, that was the important aspect of change management needed to make this vision a reality. So driven by curiosity, I decided to explore this gap and embarked on a journey into what I would like to call simulation leadership. More than 10 years later, I'm still searching for understanding, and in this series I'll be interviewing some of the most forward-looking leaders I've met, aiming to grasp how they've successfully made change happen. So welcome to the Simulation Leadership Podcast with me, Marcus Oredal from EDRMedeso. Hello everyone. For fans of the Gartner hype curve, we may have passed the peak of inflated expectations. But there is still a lot of hype around digital transformation in general, and digital engineering is no exception. My experience though is that people often mix digital transformation with tools instead of leadership. And this is what we're going to talk about today. So my guest today, visiting me here at our office in Gothenburg, it is Wladimir Schamai from Danfoss. Welcome, Vladimir.
Thank you, Marcus. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here as well. You have spent a lot of time on this topic, but before we move into that, who is Wladimir Schamai?
Yeah, so my name is Wladimir Schamai, and I lead the digital engineering initiative at Danfoss. Joined Danfoss back in 2017 to help advance the simulation capabilities, and we started with a strong focus on R&D. And then as our capabilities were improving and were developing, we extended the scope to the manufacturing and supply chain domains, and also to products and services to see how we can use these capabilities to add value to our customers. So since then I'm with Danfoss, and it's been a journey, and over the years it has formed this company-wide initiative that we call Digital Engineering Enablers.
Cool. I remember when we met the first time in real life in Stockholm at SLF, I remember I asked you at the end of the conference what you thought about the conference. And everyone before that was like, yeah, it was fantastic, great inspiration and so on. And you said, yeah, it was okay, but you didn't really approach the real topic. Can you tell me a little bit more about this? What is the real topic we need to discuss in this context?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. But I do think that you, as maybe subtle aspects to talk, we often are passionate about using digital tools, and it's a joy really that's connected to that. Many people just love it. We love technology, that's all fine. But if you put it in a context of a business, then digital tools like simulation are just tools, right? And they help company to advance their objectives and to solve pain points, and I think that is really key to understand when we talk about how to lead the change. When a company knows where it wants to play and how it wants to win, then those capabilities that will help doing so are useful, right? And then that's where the discussion starts. What type of simulation, what kind of simulation should we actually build the capability for? So it's not about a generic or general statements in terms of how great it is, how the great the technology is, and it is great, right? We all love it. But it is about how do you focus the capability development and the investment such that it will ultimately help grow your business.
So if we break this down into like some steps. First of all, how do you find these applications that will make a difference, where you can really improve the business and make a real impact on the business for your company? How do you spot them?
Yeah, so there are different angles, right, that I need to take. So one of them, of course, as I mentioned, is the strategy of the company, the business priorities. So we derive our needs for capability development from the objectives that our businesses have. That's a starting point, of course. Then there's always a prioritization task. So you need someone, a team, for example, that will prioritize resources and investment. Whenever we never have enough money to spend on a certain task. There are always limits. So there's a task of prioritization. And then, of course, it is about carefully listening to the people in the company, because to my experience, there is no silver bullet to approach that. It really depends on the industry and the company, on the spirit of the company, on the financial base of the company, so how much you can actually spend and afford after all. And listening to those who will be going through this change is yet another key aspect. So you have these three, say, elements where you have to be able to connect and clearly articulate how simulation capabilities that you want to invest into will help advance your business, grow your business, or defend your business, so you stay competitive on the market, right? That's a skill in itself, and it requires you to create a narrative that is appealing to decision makers and is clear and connects clearly to their objectives. So that's one thing. Another one, you need to put in place an instance, a team. So we do it together with businesses, so people who are in the businesses, right, who will ultimately be able to drive the execution of the strategy. Yeah. To prioritize. So that's another one, and yet another, as I mentioned, is really to engage with the practitioners and the people, because they know what's really happening on the ground, and they will help thinking through the feasibility. They will help you spotting actually opportunities that you would never think about, and these are also ultimately sometimes those who think a little bit ahead and come up with new emerging technologies and ideas that are worthwhile exploring.
So how do you brought it up already, the challenge of economics. There is a limited amount of resources and investment opportunities within a company or a government or whatever. So how can you sell the value of simulations to the highest budget holder, so to say? I think that's what we talked about in Stockholm. Who is really the one who is deciding what kind of tools you use, but maybe indirectly so?
Yeah. So, well, to my experience, the best way to sell it is to be specific and practical instead of generic and ideological. So, to really come up with cases that demonstrate value at a convincing scale, it will require some upfront investment, right? You need to explore and pilot things, but it's not the bigger investment that you will need to really talk about later on, probably once you want to accumulate it or drive it forward. So the better you make a case based on a real demonstration of value adds together with those who will actually benefit from it, the easier it is to talk to decision makers who will then assign budget to grow it. And I think so even it might be true for digital engineering or digital transformation in general, but we definitely see this in simulation. It is rather a small bets and iterations that we need to do instead of creating a big plan that is linear and we can just scale and extrapolate. That hasn't worked for me, at least yet. We often just go with the smaller bets, demonstrate the value and grow it from there while having a bigger vision. So think big, and go step by step, with a pace that is feasible and doable.
So now comes the real challenge. You have spotted the opportunity, you have received the budget. How do you actually lead this change process? When you have introduced simulation and got budget for it and all that, how do you lead that change process? If you look at it as a change process, it's more than just having the tools. It's something much bigger.
Yes, there is an element of some foundational or basic enablement, right? So there is a little bit of investment that you need to put in place to buy a few licenses, to invest a bit in the compute power, for example, or a training or an external service. There is no shortcut to me to engaging with people, primarily with practitioners and those who will be adapting new ways of working and who will be doing the real work after all. And of course with the decision makers who will be essentially responsible for assigning people, assigning resources, assigning budget to this. So first and foremost is really engage with your people and make sure that they understand the value and make sure that we engage with those who are willing to try. right? So there's natural distribution of people, mindset, so to say. Some of us are early adopters and are willing to take a risk and try and see if that works, and are okay if things don't work out exactly the way we expected. Some of us want to be on the safe side and say, well, I'll join once it is really working, right? And this is fine. So both mindsets have the advantages and disadvantages, but I think in the beginning it is really key to find those who want to try. Right. Want to try and then go make a pilot a success and then grow from there, extend it, mature it, give it a time to mature, then try to transfer, so look for low-hanging fruits, apply the same in other teams, for example, while then looking ahead for the next steps and how to scale it.
So understanding your team members and their mindset is key here.
Absolutely. Now we're talking about leadership more and how do you actually lead and how do you design your team and your capability. But absolutely. So once again, there is no shortcut to me to avoid the discussions. Change doesn't happen through a directive, through an email with all the explanation and knowledge. It happens through conversations, one at a time. Those that will allow you to find the people that will be key to do the first step, and then those who will be key to do the second step, and so forth.
So now, assume that you have spotted the right application, you have received the budget, you have engaged in a change project. Now, what about the patience from the top budget holders? How much time do you have to show success?
I think that really depends on the industry and the company. So, really difficult question to answer. From my perspective, I give it a few months typically. Okay. In a matter, so back to the point of going in iterations and rather than using iterations to create something end to end, even if it's not 100% complete, but then iterate and improve it from there. And I think in a matter of months, you should be able to see if that is promising. And then if it is not, then you pivot and change the direction if needed and adjust. And some things just don't work out for whatever reasons, right? And that's absolutely okay. It's a good learning then. We've seen cases like that. It hurts because often the reasons is not the potential that we failed, that we misunderstood or misinterpreted. There are other factors that just influence why the timing is not right for this yet or so. But that's okay. It's all the learning. I think it's a fast pace and exploration mindset that we need to have going in iterations, and that reduces, of course, the time when you check in on the progress, which in my case is a few months maximum.
So as a leader, you need to be a bit pragmatic here.
You need to be very pragmatic, yes, and transparent, and make sure that the team understands it is okay to try and fail. The team knows that it is expected to progress within a few months, and the reason for that is to see if that's really something we wanna invest into.
Yeah. So, experience from Danfoss, have you now succeeded concretizing the value of simulations internally and manage to estimate value, sell it to management so that it's seen as a truth in the company? Or
every year, I was talking about the strategy, company strategy and priorities. We do have a process in place. We review the strategy and the priority frequently, so we adjust if needed. And then it is at least once a year, typically this year, and each time we're preparing for the next year, it is like it feels like it just doesn't stop. So we spot new opportunities. We see more opportunities because we are now organized in a better shape than before. We organized in a better way. We can do other things, bigger things, and so it is like it doesn't stop, right? So I think it's a field that will evolve for the next decades to come. Where simulation tools and machine learning now is our scene will reinforce each other and create even more opportunities to benefit from the tools. If you look ahead, then it'll be a journey that will just continue. Yeah. Now looking back, we can see that we have significantly increased the speed in development. So we develop way faster than compared to where we started.
All right.
And that is measured.
Yeah.
And this is really nice. Actually, we overperformed on that one. We haven't even expected that it'll be. We achieved it before the deadline and actually overperformed. We have saved a lot of money just because we were able to either avoid prototyping or at least prepare the tests and reduce the need for physical prototypes and the energy. I mean, don't underestimate the energy that is used on tests. I think of the lifetime tests that run for weeks or even months, right? Now, replacing one iteration of that test with simulation has a big impact on not only on cost, of course, but on the energy that we use. So waste is reduced, less prototypes. In cases where we need to have the prototypes, we still have the 3D printing that allows us to do it faster and cheaper as well. So overall, we have measured that. So we have it on a case-by-case, essentially accumulated perspective, and that has been convincing at the Danfoss level so far. Now, even more important and exciting is that we see it helps us actually to win and defend our business.
Oh.
And in some industries, it becomes a prerequisite for doing business. So you need to be able to provide a simulation model up front of your product, of your new design, of your existing product or a new product to actually make business. So that is something we have looked into as well and collected all the cases where the success of winning business or defending business was attributed to using simulation capabilities that were developed or 3D printing. So we measure, as we go, we measure this. There's no scientific method that we have found yet. So it's really case-by-case evaluation with those people who are responsible, who can make a statement, a quantitative statement. It's not always that easy. It's often annoying, but it's a really crucial part of the journey because once you measure it, you can argue for the significance of the progress and also for future investments.
So now with the experience you've gained in the last couple of years, do you think it's more difficult to drive adoption of digital engineering compared to other digital transformation or digital technologies as such?
Well, I think value drives adoption. So as you know, if you can demonstrate that it adds value, people are convinced, that will just naturally create a pull.
Yeah.
I don't think that is different for digital tools compared to other change processes that we go through. Of course, there's one thing that is probably a bit more challenging. In digital, the real value of digitalization is once you not only digitize your way of working, so you can do the same work but now using digital tools instead of paper, for example. But you actually rethink the way you work. And there are great examples from, say, ERP implementations where people did the accounting work the same way they've done before, but now with this new fancy ERP system and would not see any effect, right?
Yeah.
And it was when they realized that they can do accounting at any time and every day, that's where the value becomes apparent. And I think that is quite a challenge sometimes because this, of course, might affect not only those people you work with in a pilot to see if it is worthwhile. It might affect way more people because you will then probably change your processes and ways of working. It might be special to digital transformation. Honestly speaking, I don't know. Probably not. Probably it's the same in any real transformation task.
Right.
So, after all, I think maximizing the value from digitalization is a challenge, and that requires just rethink the way of working, and that will allow you actually to benefit from it to the most extent.
So maybe what you describe now is the real challenge, that this is a change process.
Yeah.
And if you underestimate that, you will not get the benefits from the digital technology as such. Let's move on to our final topic. There is a lot of fuss about AI these days, and we actually discussed before this interview that maybe we should have prepared by putting it all into AI and come up with a script, but we didn't. We actually decided to do this properly, the old way. But it's a digital technology, but I know you're a strong believer in digital engineering and fabrication as a means to attract future talent. So what do you think about the role of the future engineer versus AI and the competence needed and things like that?
Well, probably probably we should meet again in 1 or 2 years and talk again about it to see how this, because things progress so fast and it's difficult to make any predictions, I think. But in general, I see AI capabilities being great way to assist us to enhance our cognitive abilities. So in that sense, it becomes yet another tool in our toolbox, so to say. I think AI will be great really to give you access to knowledge that is distributed across either people or databases in a company and to make it useful for your task. I think that will be a big step forward. It's a great memorization machine, right?
Yeah.
But then of course it'll help, when combined with simulations, it'll help us to innovate and to do research faster, right? So now leaving the industrial domain, when you go to the medical domain of pharmaceutics, I think we'll be grateful for any advances that can be accelerated with the AI technology. Machine learning, AI, simulation, 3D printing will be skills of future engineers leaving universities. I think for companies like ours, it is important to prepare for that, because those will be attracted by companies who provide you with, or give you the environment that will benefit or leverage these capabilities and help you thrive in your career.
I mean, we're coming to an end here, but I must thank you very much, Vladimir, because you were actually the one who initiated this podcast series. When we met last summer, you said, why don't you run a podcast? I thought, okay, I'll think about it. And then I had some colleagues who said the same. Why don't we let the Simulation Leadership Forum live during the year instead of just having it once per year? So I'm very grateful that you actually asked that question last summer. I also want to make this a series that survives for a long time. So I have a final question for you, and that is, what would you like to ask the next guest at the Simulation Leadership podcast?
You know, I'm a practical person. I like to be specific. And I would love to hear about cases from companies that I can share and they're really proud of. Because I believe that inspires others and will invite them to follow. Like in our company, we have a huge portfolio. So in the beginning, the real storming was about how do we actually have a common sense of what we're trying to do here with building up simulation capabilities, given that we have this huge portfolio, very different products. But then pretty quickly we realized, but the physics are the same. They don't change, right? Yeah. Luckily. And since then, this diversity of products has helped us a lot. So the more diverse the perspectives, given the same goal that you're trying to achieve, for example, in that case, to capture the physics in the way that is useful to develop faster using modeling and simulation, the better. So the more cases we get from different companies that are really inspiring, the better. That will move the needle. That will help us all communicate and share and inspire others and spread the word. And then, of course, best practice, whatever we can share. But I think I made the point in the beginning that, to me, there is no silver bullet, right? So there's also no shortcut to work that you need to do when you enter a company to see where it is and where it is actually trying to go, and how will these tools like digital tools or simulation help the company advance. There's still some best practices we can share across, but the work is something that one needs to do anyway. So any inspirations from outside would be really appreciated. A great case that we could, take internally and discuss and see if there's something that we can actually apply in our domain too.
I will do my best to find such a case for you. But you underlined something that I think is important here. This is not about the actual industry you're in. It's more the way of working, and that goes across many industries. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, it's probably a mindset topic. So the way you approach it, the way you rethink, such that it doesn't disturb the current state, such that it becomes destructive, right? But it leads actually the way to open up for new opportunities. I think that's probably what it takes. That approach will help you to rethink the ways of working. And chances are that there are commonalities, absolutely. I think we see this in terms of tools we use, right? Many of us use the same tools. So chances are that we have good best practice, even though the companies are totally different and industries are totally different. So, back to diversity, I think, the more diverse actually the perspective, the better we'll be able to apply things that are in common. because it's not, it's not biased. Then it's coming from a totally different direction, but telling you the same story. That's probably more convincing compared to someone internally who can, for the 5th time, tell you the same stuff and try to convince you.
Thanks a lot, Vladimir, for being here today and telling your story. And I hope I'll meet you again at the Simulation Leadership Forum in August in Denmark this time. August 27, 28.
All right, noted. Marcus, thanks for having me.
Thank you.